Welcome everyone, this is Marcus with Dynasty Football Dads. We are going to be doing a mock round 2 of the 2021 rookies here. So this is going to be 13 through 24 and a half point PPR league and non-super flex, non-tight end premium. We'll be doing those videos in the upcoming months here. If you're new to the channel, please subscribe. If you want more content, we're going to be trying to do this daily. And then if you want to, you can comment between 1 and 1,000, and we'll be giving away this Shaq rookie card in January. If no one else comments, this thing's going to Germany, so just know that. Number 13, so if you haven't reviewed the first video, go to the first video. We have 1 through 12. 13 is going to be Amon-Ra St. Brown, so brother of Equinemius St. Brown. They got some very unique names, but he's going to be my wide receiver number 6 in this class, and so number 13 overall. He is 6'1", 195 pounds. He's a junior, and so he reminds me a ton of the route running, the body control of like a Keenan Allen. And so there's 2 wide receivers, and I'll get to the second one that kind of reminds me of the Keenan Allen type. And now Keenan Allen is an excellent route runner, and he's had excellent quarterbacks, and he has excellent body control. He's good within the numbers too. So we hope that the ceiling of some of these players are Keenan Allen in the second round, where they can become a PPR stud and become a low wide receiver 1, high wide receiver 2 as a ceiling point. And now their floor might be a wide receiver 3, wide receiver maybe low 2. The big thing about Amon-Ra St. Brown is he's going to be he's going to have a floor. He's going to have some production, being a good route runner, good across the numbers as well. The biggest cons is his speed. He is a 4.6, probably 40 runner, which is not ideal when it comes to a wide receiver. You see a lot of these wide receivers are probably going to run 4.4s, some 4.3s, some 4.5s. But when you get into that 4.6 range, it's hard to become a really elite wide receiver. There are receivers that do that, and his athleticism is lacking somewhat. And that's partly why he runs slow. But as a football player, we talk about football player versus, I guess, raw, like what kind of attributes do they have? And sometimes you just got to pick the football player. And in this case, Amon-Ra St. Brown, wide receiver 6, number 13 overall in the class. Number 14, I love my Georgia Bulldogs. We've had Nick Chubb, we've had Sony Michel, we've had DeAndre Swift now the last couple of years, Todd Gurley, all these lineage of Georgia running backs. And so we are going to go with Zamir White as running back 6, number 14 overall. He is ideal size, so 6 feet tall, 6 feet tall, 216 pounds. So when we talk about a guy who is a prototypical size for a 3-down back, this is what you're getting. I guess, cons you would say of him is he's had 2 ACL injuries, which has stopped many players. And it has not stopped some. Like Frank Gore had 2 ACL injuries, and he's completely fine. In fact, he's immortal, some would say. He had 779 yards and 11 touchdowns in 10 games, and he had a 5.4 average. So, I mean, it's a really good stat line for 10 games. He did have a limited catching profile in college, which happens sometimes with some of these running backs. We don't get to really see their full development in the passing game until they either get into the NFL or until they get into a new system. He is physical, but not like super fast, and he's a downhill runner. And when I say not super fast, he's not going to run your 4.3s, but he might run into the high 4.4s, 4.50s. So he has the, I guess, attributes you could say for a 3-down running back. And that's very, like, a small sample size in this class. Like, it would be very interesting to see where Zamir White goes. He's my running back 6 in this class right now. And always the preface and always something I always want to say to people. I know we're only 4 minutes into the video, but a lot's going to change in the second round. This is going to be such an interesting second round because COVID hit. Of course, some of these players only played 10 games, 6 games, 3 games. And so some of them are still recovering from injury of the previous year. It's a really small sample size. The biggest key, and why I'm going to do a tips for 2021's draft coming up soon, probably in the next couple of weeks, is draft capital. I could see these players not even being in the top 30. And I could see some of these players that are not in my top 24 going all the way up into this like 13, 14, 15 range. depending on draft capital. Draft capital is number one and will always be king, and there's reasons for it, analytics for it, and I will go through that in a different video. But draft capital will be the king of all stats. So it depends on where some of these people go, but this is just a way too early round 2, just so you get some of these players in your brain. You can watch some highlight videos of them, see where they're at. Zamir White, of course, reminds me of kind of a LeGarrette Blount style, and some people go, well, LeGarrette Blount was not very good. Well, I mean, he scored like 18 touchdowns in 1 year, and so he can be very useful for fantasy-wise, and LeGarrette Blount was actually like a somewhat decent pass catcher for his size. Number 15 is Pat. I'm going to try to not butcher this name. Freiermuth. Yeah. It's a long one. Just Pat. And they call him Baby Gronk. So pretty much Baby Gronk. He is my tight end number 2. A lot of people you're going to see Brevin Jordan in here in this situation. I like Pat better. And he's 6'5", 250 pounds. So you're talking about a prototypical size. Penn State has a lot of, I guess, past tight ends that have had success into the NFL. His cons are he's battling through some shoulder surgery stuff, and he's not a great blocker. But I mean, realistically in fantasy, you don't care if he blocks or not, as long as he can catch the ball, run good routes, which he can do. But the thing is, to get on the field, you need to block. So it's kind of a like, well, he's not going to be a Kittle ever, because Kittle's a physical monster, and everybody that is white, 6'5", and 250 that is a tight end gets put into one of 2 categories, Gronk or Kelsey. And unfortunately, the people that he compares most to are probably like a Gronkowski type. Gronk was a better blocker, that is for sure. But Pat Freiermuth has close to the route running abilities, the athleticism. I mean, he can move for a 6'5", 250-pound guy. He had in 4 games, 310 yards, on 23 catches and a touchdown. And as being a Gophers fan, Vikings fan as well, I got to watch him in person, and just every crucial like third down play, these 3rd and 5s, 3rd and 6s, they would go to Mr. Pat, and it was just killing the Gophers. But just seeing that, I could totally see him fit into an NFL offense where he's relied upon in the middle of the field as a really good, solid tight end in this league. And for that, I put him at number 15 overall. Number 16. Oh, my thing just went blank. There we go. Justin Fields. So a lot of people are going to question, well, do we go Zach Wilson? Do we go Trey Lance? Where do we go here? Justin Fields, Ohio State quarterbacks have been known to struggle in the NFL. And that's, I mean, I can't remember the last time we've had an Ohio State. I think I looked back like 25 years. Couldn't find somebody. The pros are just absolutely off the charts of mobility, accuracy, and power. Now, if somebody can really hone all that in, because his biggest issues are being under pressure and progressions and vision, which are 3 of the most important things you probably need as a quarterback. Think more of a kind of Deshaun Watson-like. Deshaun Watson had an up and down last year at Clemson. Think about that for Justin Fields. Will he be the Watson, or will he be just the next mobility quarterback that ends up burning out at Ohio State? In 20 games, this is his career, he had 5,373 yards, 63 touchdowns, 9 interceptions on almost 69% passing. Just crazy stats, but ultimately Ohio State usually dominates their competitions, and you could see him get stuck on certain progressions. That worries me in the NFL, but again, he is very mobile until he gets hit by Clemson linebacker, and then he becomes not so mobile. So it will be interesting to see where he exactly lands, how high he's going to go, and how much he can progress through some of those reads and stuff to the next level. You could see him at his high ceiling would be like if he progressed like Josh Allen, who had troubles with pressure, troubles with his cannon of an arm, just launching balls too far, had interceptions, completion problems, but is very mobile. And then all of a sudden you can see where Josh Allen is now. He's probably a top 3 dynasty quarterback. Where's my 17? 17 is Brevin Jordan. So he is the other tight end I mentioned. When we talk about Pat, we got Kyle Pitts, who's clear and above number one, and I think he will be for most people. And I think he might even be like around pick 15, 16, 17. I don't know what those teams are currently, but he would be in that area. I think Pat will maybe end of the first, early second. Brevin Jordan, kind of in that same area. He is 6'3", 245 pounds. The biggest thing is you will watch highlights and you can see he runs after the catch. He is an athletic 6'3", 245. He looks like a linebacker out there running. He looks like kind of like a Ray Lewis, but on the offensive line, of how quick he can run through and just demolish some people. He is great in space. And not just good in space, he is great in space. Again, super athletic, but he is very inconsistent. He'll make some highlight catches, and then he'll make some real bad drops. And you're just like, what is going on? Like, there's two Brevin Jordans, basically. There's the really highlight reel one, and then there's the one that he's just concentration drops. He's not a good route runner. He's been improving that through his years, but at Miami, he has some work to do. He is raw. And that's going to be the thing. He's an average blocker, too. He's not a great blocker. He had 1,300 yards, 1,300 yards, 13 touchdowns, and in 3 years. Man, that's a lot of threes. 1,300 yards, 13 touchdowns, 3 years. Say that 10 times fast at your own house. And tight end 3. So the biggest comparison I would say is he's an Evan Ingram. Evan Ingram, we've heard about the talent. We've heard about how great he's going to be. But yeah, he just hasn't folded into his own yet. He has sparks of moments, and then he has other moments where he just disappears and you barely even see him. That's going to be Brevin Jordan. He's probably not going to be out there when there's blocking situations too. You need to find a team that almost has a blocking tight end, and then Brevin Jordan's like your pass-catching tight end. Maybe even like a Houston or something like that, but Houston's could be a dumbfire, so who knows? Number 18 is going to be Terrence Marshall. He's my wide receiver 7. He's very raw as well. He is somebody that has kind of bursted onto the scene with Justin Jefferson now leaving. He is, deep speed. LSU finds these deep speed wide receivers. He is a stellar athlete, and he has great body control. So he had 48 receptions, 731 yards, and 10 touchdowns. So awesome stats. He's 6'3", 201. So ideal size. And the person he reminds me most of is like an Eric Decker, kind of even a Bryan Edwards of last year. We talked about how much South Carolina, the wide receiver Bryan Edwards, how good he was, how raw he was, his breakout time. Well, Terrence Marshall is that same size. He's a little bit lighter. He's like 15 pounds lighter than Edwards. But he has deep speed. He can definitely burn past you. But he needs route running abilities, and his quickness is not ideal. He doesn't go in and out of breaks. So when we talk about all these different wide receivers, they're great at route running. Terrence Marshall's probably the opposite of that type of wide receiver. Those are wide receivers I don't usually like as much and tend to fall down the board, but it'll be interesting to see, again, where his draft capital is. If he's drafted in the round 2, I could see him staying here, maybe even moving up. If he's drafted in round 4, I could see him not being picked in the first 2 rounds, maybe even the first 2.5 rounds. So that's where Terrence Marshall is. Again, he's out of LSU, so you can definitely watch some stats of him with Joe Burrow and without Joe Burrow as well. Number 19 is Tylan Wallace. Tylan Wallace. He is 6 feet tall, 200 pounds, and he's my other Keenan Allen, type wide receiver. So you kind of already know he's a route runner. He has burst in short spaces. He's got good body control. These are things that we already kind of know with Amon St. Brown. He has a reassuring floor. And again, these types of players, especially in PPR, they're going to catch the ball. They're going to produce points. They may not give you the high ceiling of a top 10 wide receiver, but they're going to be good for their team as well. And so he had 1,491 yards and 12 touchdowns in 18 games, but he had an ACL injury in 2019, which really set him back. And so this is kind of the problem with COVID is like, how good is Tylan Wallace after all this has happened? He's my wide receiver 8, but these wide receivers can move up and down quite a bit based on draft capital and really where they go as well. So that's pretty much all with Tylan Wallace. We definitely need to see, I really hope that the combine, I know they're doing the combine weird different things, but combine is going to be huge and important for him. So number 20 is my wide receiver 9 is Tamarian Terry. He is incredible with his metrics. 6'4", 209 pounds. If you want a wide receiver that's 6'4" and 209 pounds, Like that's like an ideal size for an X wide receiver, like AJ Green body type, not performance style, but body type. He had 60 catches for 1,188 yards and 9 touchdowns in 2019. So not 2020, but 2019. So he had really good at Florida State, but he had concentration drops. He is probably number one with that. And sometimes that hurts draft capital quite a bit, and sometimes you get somebody like Deontay Johnson who just keeps dropping it, and they just keep giving it to him, and he'll be a fantasy production. And he also has poor hand technique, so I have a hard time seeing him get off jams and press coverage. Like, those things could be an issue with Tamarian Terry, but he is big, he is fast, and he is raw. And if somebody can hone all those abilities and work on him, and if he improves, that is going to be the hugest key. If he improves, he could definitely be one of those wide receivers that we get in the middle of the second round, and all of a sudden we go, what happened? He is a top 10 fantasy wide receiver in 3 years. He also could be somebody that is absolutely worthless, and that's kind of the problem with the second round, is he could be somebody that is not even in barely the league anymore. It reminds me most of Josh Gordon. And Josh Gordon, if you remember him, I mean, I know he just got definitely suspended again, but incredible talent. He's just got to hone it in. You got to find a team that will work best with him. And he needs a good quarterback. So if he's on a team with a bad quarterback, he's definitely going to drop. He needs somebody that will put the ball on him in a good spot. So, yeah, I would say like a Green Bay would be a good fit. But I think Green Bay will go more towards a smaller wide receiver, potentially even a Rondale Moore. They should. Or even like a Jalen Waddle. They should do that for Aaron Rodgers, depending on if they win the Super Bowl or not. So number 21 through 24, I'm just going to group these are 4 running backs that are very similar to each other. And why they are similar to each other is because they have not little tape, but they are very questionable of where they're going to go in the draft. Could they go in the second round, third round, or undrafted? It all depends on how much teams fall in love with them, what their combine stats are. And I mean, some of these are a little bit smaller schools. We don't have a ton of tape on them. Like, the first person we're going to be talking about is Jarrett Patterson, and he did everything in 6 games. You'll see a stat line. You'll think he played a whole year. He is 5'9", 195. He's my RB7. He's from Buffalo. Yeah, so some just smaller school. He had 1,072 yards and 19 touchdowns. And that was 6 games. So that is absolutely ridiculous. He had more than 3 touchdowns in each of his games on that average. He is my closest projected to James Robinson. And so when we talk about running backs like James Robinson, he was undrafted. Jarrett Patterson's so hard because he's 5'9", 195. He's not super big. And some of these running backs that we're going to talk about here are not ideal size. Ideal size is you're over 200, potentially over 210. I mean, we talk even about Travis Etienne, who's potentially not 200 pounds. But Jarrett Patterson, 5'9", 195, he is not super fast, and he's not super explosive. Well, how in the world did he get 1,072 yards and 19 touchdowns, especially in 6 games? He is slippery, and he has yards after contact. He is hard to bring down. So he has very quick feet, super quick. Like, we are talking, if you look at it, he looks like he's sometimes dancing out there. And he really finds the hole with that. He has good vision and everything, and I really like him as a running back. And so that he's going to be one of those biggest mysteries. He's going to be a big riser or a big faller depending on draft capital. Who drafts him? Is he going to be a primary back? Is he going to be a secondary back? Is he going to be a third down back? Where is he going to be? He can catch the ball. He has really good hands as well, at least from the tape that I've seen. So James Robinson is the comparison. He's at RB7. There's definitely RBs that won't be on this list that could jump him, or he might. I mean, Jarrett Patterson gets drafted in the second round, and all of a sudden, you hear him, and he's going like 11th or 10th in drafts. It could easily happen, and it could happen with some of these running backs here. And so number 22 is a guy who is one pound more than Jarrett Patterson, and that's Javian Hawkins. And so I know a lot of people have been falling in love with him. He is 5'9", 196. He is a Louisville running back. He's my running back 8 and 22 overall. He is the opposite of Jarrett Patterson, though. We talk about Jarrett Patterson not being fast and slow, looks like a little bit more of a bowling ball. Javian Hawkins looks skinny, fast, pure speed, pure quickness. I mean, you're talking about, when I saw him, immediately somebody popped in my brain. I was like, this is Tariq Cohen. This is Tariq Cohen, just a little bit taller. And he lacks size, lacks power. But if you find him on a great passing down role where he can be a James White, even be like a Danny Woodhead type, I mean, he could be that running back too that purely focuses just on catching and speed and is really hard to break down. He's not super big, but I mean, pure speed, pure quickness. If you want to see some of that, Javion Hawkins, he's the one to watch. My number 23 is another running back 9. It is Kylan Hill. And so the next two are going to be running backs. So Kylan Hill is 5'11", 215. So he's a little bit more prototypical, but what he's done lately has not been prototypical. He's not a 3-down running back. He is more of a pass catcher. In fact, the last 3 games, his only 3 games of 2020, he had more receptions than rushes. 23 receptions, 15 rushes. He has a big upper body. He's creative. He's good at cutting, and he's a good pass catcher. He just lacks the top speed and some lateral quickness. The biggest comparison to him, I would say, is James White. And again, these running backs need to find a good fit. And if they don't find a good fit, or if they get thrown third on the depth chart, or if they get put in a place where there's already a huge, if they get put on like a Minnesota Vikings team where they have Cook and Madison and you get one of these running backs on there, I'm pretty much not going to draft them in the first 2-3 rounds. So these running backs that are 23 could be 40 on my board. And that's the tough part. This is probably the toughest, after the first about 13, 14 picks, it's been the toughest draft to decide because of COVID issues, and we're going to have to figure out this combine stuff and who's going to be a part of the combine. Some people have opted out of school, and it's definitely going to be one of the toughest things. And so that's why watching film, watching people's opinions to see, not just mine, but many others, I think it's going to be super important for overall fantasy success and draft capital as well, which I'm going to harp in your brains 30 million times. And then, so Kylan Hill, James White, basically my comp for him. Number 24 is going to be a guy that maybe you've seen lately because he has kind of bursted onto the scene. He is 6'1", 215 pounds. We are talking about Mr. Trey Sermon. And he was at Oklahoma, transferred to Ohio State. And so you might know him as the man who destroyed Northwestern. And so we have to go through these stats at the Big Ten. He had 331 yards. 331 yards. That's a Big Ten record. And on 29 carries. So just absolutely ridiculous game. He's known for the championship game, which he hurt his shoulder, and then you saw Master Teague come out, who's another running back in a split committee that, I mean, he showed that he was good as well. So Trey Sermon, big, I mean, not a great athlete. He doesn't have super top-end speed. Think of a poor man's Najee Harris. I compared him to Samaje Perine, which, I mean, it's not a great comp, but, like, I mean, thinking of, like, oh, my goodness, Samaje Perine didn't do great. But, I mean, if you find him in a good place, he could be a good 2-down runner. I mean, he's a tough runner. He's got good vision, too, for how big he is. And he does have some little lateral wiggle to him. But, yeah, not a great athlete. And you can see that with his low top-end speed. I could see him running a 4.6-ish and hopefully not any slower. Because if he's slower, then he's pretty much done for. So the other players that were close, Michael Carter, Master Teague, C.J. Verdell, Oregon running back, and Michael Carter's the other running back to Javonte Williams. He's the other North Carolina running back. He's a senior. Seth Williams, Auburn wide receiver. And let's see, I think there's a couple other ones that were close. Kadarius Terry out of Florida. So, I mean, this is all going to change. We do this way too early, mock draft 2021 for round 2, but, I mean, I could see half of these players not being drafted in the first, maybe even 3 rounds. It is going to be a huge shakeup. 1 through 12 is important. 1 through 12 is almost easier for a Dynasty fantasy manager because they can just draft and go. But when you talk about 13 through 24, are you going to find Claypools or are you going to find... I'm trying to think of the guy that was from Oklahoma I can't even think of his name. Yep, I can't even think of his name. It was Oakland Raiders that got traded to Miami. Lynn Bowden Jr. Or you're going to get a Lynn Bowden Jr. Claypool, Lynn Bowden. Like, those are the differences. Those are very similar picks last year. Are you going to get a Denzel Mims? Or are you going to get T. Higgins? I mean, these are big differences. Antonio Gibson, or are you going to get a Zach Moss? Like, round 2 is a half lottery and half bust. You got to figure out these picks. I'll update these rankings as we go on, as things change, as maybe reports go out there, and maybe even sticking in with some teams I think will definitely help as well. So yeah, this is Marcus with Dynasty Football Dads, where dads do some fantasy dynasty football. Man, I can't talk today. All right, well, if you made it this far, you made it 25 minutes of listening to me mispronounce things, you mumbled, all that fun stuff. Thank you for sticking along. Please subscribe. Please comment below. I hope that you enjoy the content, and let me know what videos you'd like from me, because I would like to do some more videos here. All right, take care, everyone. Peace out.